Hi everyone, we're about to start our next session, so I'll hand over to Rachael, our moderator.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Natasha, for having us. So, we're getting started here. Hi everybody, my name is Dr. Rachael Ainsworth. I am a senior product manager at Kraken, owned by Octopus Energy Group. I'm also the founder of the Manchester chapter of HER+Data, which is a meetup community for women and non-binary people in data and tech. So I'm going to hand over to Mairéad to introduce herself.
Hi, I am Mairéad Pratschke. I am a professor and chair in digital education at the University of Manchester's in School of Arts, Languages and Cultures, the Faculty of Humanities.
Hi, I'm Lilia. I'm a principal data engineer at Kalibrate. Kalibrate is a company that provides a number of data-driven solutions, and I currently focus on fuel price insights. So quite a lot of that. And
thank you very much. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Amira Ahmed and I'm Director of Academic Learning at Ainsworth Group. So as a company, we basically do a lot of things, but specifically we upskilling programs in terms of boot camps. We also have a lot of programs for the modern workplace, for the modern resources, and we are, I'm very keen into this industry and specifically the futuristic technologies. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much to our panel. So we're going to dive right into this topic today. So my big question to the panel is, in the spirit of Halloween, what is scary about generative AI? What are your fears?
Right, I'll start. So I am deep in higher education at the moment, though I've worked outside in industry and startups and stuff like that. And I suppose my biggest fear is the gap that I see between industry and education and the ignorance sometimes on both sides as to what we need to close it. So a little bit of ignorance in terms of maybe empathizing with what each side needs. And really at the extreme end, of course, my fears are the same that everyone fears. Worries about guardrails and safety and agentic AI taking off and doing things we don't want it to do, etc. Fill in the blank. What about you?
I'll continue with that. It's quite interesting because gap is, of course, applying to all of us, not just in education. Probably everybody in the room can agree with the fact that whatever title or whatever role we work with, there's always a gap between our knowledge and what we need to do, between what is expected of us. But I would like to extend a little bit further and go into, in the theme of Halloween, it always reminds me of all these nice sci-fi movies and things, the rest of it. It's a little bit like a mirror to yourself. So what I would like to kind of put as an aspect is that mirror of Gen AI or another new technology thing is coming back to yourself and seeing what is actually missing within yourself. So as a technology company or as a person working with a lot of data, my first fear, it's not necessarily a fear, but it's a very interesting focus, is back to data. What data are we holding? How much do we have? How much control over do we have? Do we actually use it? Do we have access to it? Do we have authority over it? With Gen AI coming through with so much openness coming through, which is great. All of those are great opportunities. There is a lot of new unknown gray areas which we need to explore. So this is probably a very interesting aspect of fear / awareness / what are we going to do with that? And Amira?
Thank you very much. I think my fear is coming directly from the perspectives of the 3D artists that I have been involved. So in the community, because there's a lot of stories, to be honest. You have heard about it, how creative industry is like the AI is taking power of that. And what I mean for creative industry is like the creative people who are using the technology. So they come up with the stories like as a 3D artist, and he explained to me that because the fear is the client expectations. Because before that, client is unaware, and because of the artistic side, they are like niche areas, and they get the respect of that one. Now with the AI, and because a client can easily prompt something in the Gen AI, and there is some images coming up, the expectations of the client is unrealistic. Now they are asking these 3D developers or 3D artists or developers as well, why not you do this work in like next 2 days rather than you need a week? So that is the biggest issue, I believe, and that is the biggest fear, because the creativity, that is where the whole industry belongs, it is definitely jeopardizing with this Gen AI. And we need a rules and regulation, and specifically we need a training for the clients, the unrealistic expectations, because that is taking over everywhere, to be honest. And I'm not talking about only one example, it's everyday examples. A lot of jobs perspective is going to be taking over, and that is reality, because I work in that industry. So yeah, that is my fear, I think.
We've covered a lot there. We've talked about the fears between the gaps, and we've identified a lot of gaps. We've got gaps between, the higher ups and the workers, so maybe C-suite and the developers and users. Academia and industry can cause quite a wide gap. Lilia talked a lot about the data, what we're using it for and what we're trying to extract, so that gap between knowledge and then what we need to do with it. And then also this gap between, expectations versus reality. Is there anything else anybody wants to follow up on what anybody said just there before I ask the next question?
I was just going to say that gap between leadership and employees is across the board. I see it absolutely everywhere I go, every group that I talk to, every country I'm in. And I'm finding that it's exerting really unfair and unrealistic pressure on employees, where they're being told to deliver something that's not realistic because someone in the C-suite has heard you can do something, but they haven't actually played with the technology themselves. They're not really fully aware of actually how much work goes into upskilling and all of that stuff too. So I think that's more a message for leadership than anyone maybe necessarily sitting here, but yeah, that awareness needs to be built for sure.
Can I just get you on that last note, because it touches so many different aspects. If we're talking about leadership, again, that's not nothing negative against leadership, we're talking about the gap. It's about the expectation. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the leadership always just wants and doesn't know. But if we're talking about how much time and how much effort is put into defining what is it that you actually want to solve, what are the problems or what are the issues or what are the values that you would like to add by using this new technology? Because it's all great, it's all shiny, it's all very, very powerful. But that gap, I think, is another different point of view of maybe the focus needs to be defined in what are we trying to solve and what tools are the best fitted for that, and then find which people are great for that, which knowledge gap maybe needs to be filled, and maybe define how much of the actual effort we need to put into this. So the effort doesn't always go just to close that one simple gap of we don't have AI capabilities currently in the product, we want something new, we want that little chatbot, or we want something that just shows that we use AI as the more modern looking company, or industry or sector or something else. It's that knowledge and actual focus put into understanding what are we trying to use it for and what are we trying to achieve with that. And I think that is a really, really interesting point in terms of gap and the fears. It's not fearing that we don't know something, but it's actually putting effort into understanding what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, on the same point, I think one of the things that come across to me is innovation is not equal to AI, because a lot of this guided word that AI is the ultimate solution, and people are, to be honest, making businesses as a consultant of AI, that we will give you the ultimate solution, that once you have the AI, your business will boom. That is definitely a wrong promise to it. Ad agencies, creative industries are using it, and they believe that it will solve their problems as a friction of AI. But at the same time, they don't know what is under the surface, because once they adopt the AI, then what's the strategic decision? How much AI they needed? If you are purchasing, I believe everyone have a purchase, you purchase somehow one of the premium version of the ChatGPT. Why? Because everybody told you the free version does not have the strength to give you, and they are like more selling into that. So I think innovation is equal to not AI. Innovation is always belong what the new creative idea we have, and at the same time, how much AI can take power into that innovations. So we are not having some false promises from all the biz gimmicks, to be honest. So this is my point of view. That is also a gap. Thank you.
Amazing, thank you. Kind of following along from that, my next question is, what is the cost? What are the risks? So this can range, all the way from the global environmental impact down to the individual.
Am I starting again? The cost. I mean, to be honest with you, costs are financial, they're environmental, they're energy related, but they're also, again, I'm in education right now, but also often talk to people in industry working in L&D in particular. And for me, the cost is really building on what we just talked about, which is focusing solely on efficiency and sacrificing effectiveness on that altar of efficiency, that we don't necessarily think about how we want to be effective in terms of what we want to achieve. And instead, we're focused on efficiency because, again, that's often the kind of narrative that you get for good reason. People all want to be more efficient and make more money, and everyone is happier, et cetera, et cetera. But what I find is that generative AI is so different from previous technologies that often the people that are making those decisions don't quite understand that this is not like previous digital technology where you just implement it, you learn how to use it, and you're done. That it is emerging, that it's evolving, that it's rapidly shifting and changing, and that there's actually a totally different landscape that we're operating in now. And how we think about how we upskill, how we use it, how we implement it, has to be actually radically different from the technologies of the past. So again, that's what I meant in terms of the gap, and this idea that we're fixated on efficiency, but we're not actually thinking about effectiveness, which is how do you work with the technology? Because for me, that's the main thing people need to learn to do. The people I'm surrounded with, for sure. It's not the simple go and use a tool and you're finished. It's actually, you now need to start learning how to interact with the tool, shape it, create it, update it, train it, fine-tune it. Things that, frankly, everyday users are not really used to doing. Developers know all about this, but end users don't. But I think that's actually what's different about Gen AI, is that all end users now need to become a lot more computationally literate, AI literate, technologically literate, in ways that they're not used to doing. So I can't remember what the question was, but that was my answer to it.
That's a big cost. Yeah.
It's a long answer, sorry.
No, but that's really brilliant. It's one of those where the cost as a word, it just opens so many values. And I think during you sort of talking after, I'd like to catch on that. So I will try to remember a couple points because there are so many nice openings there. No, really nice openings there. Because one is, of course, when we're talking about the cost as, we can all talk about, how much actual, energy. How do you compare running of a model to generate something super silly, like a little video, and how many houses would you power through that? We can talk about this. This is interesting, but it's a different point. Let's talk about the cost in terms of, you talked about efficiency. That's the point I wanted to catch on. Efficiency and effectiveness and all the words around it is when I may twist it slightly towards data as well, just got a tiny little and the gaps. The difference between, we have so much, the great large language models, all the data in the world that we can use. The great power is the fact that we have access to quite a lot of the data that maybe is not just within your sector, maybe just not within your industry, but definitely not within just your personal access. But the great danger that comes with it is not just the control that you don't have, but you don't have straight up knowledge about the value of each contribution that has made it into the response that you're getting. So the generated response, if you just take it as it comes, and that's the second definite amazing point that I wanted to catch on Mairéad, is the fact that you can't expect to be no coding, no development, take it as it comes kind of user to this technology. The interesting twist, slightly different topic, but it's related to that, is that there is so much work that has gone into moving away from code. You can drag and drop, you can create an app in very quick time, you can create this amazing output, generate whatever output you want, reports, anything and everything. But the expectation is that it would save you the time because you just click the button, you put a little prompt or a little bit of something, and then it comes out ready as it comes. If you do not go and put any effort into reviewing that, validating against the sources that we use to create that, maybe validating against your knowledge or knowledge within your team, maybe knowledge within the industry that you don't own personally. If you don't validate it, it becomes not necessarily useless, but it does not bring you that efficiency and the cost that you were so hoping for. So saving this hour on maybe running the extra read-through, proofreading, just comes back to mind, is losing the point of cost saving because the results of it is not going to be as precise, it's not going to be as specific to your need if you do not go and do that loop. And that comes again to another point that Mairéad mentioned about the continuous evolution. So this is not a tool that I would expect a tool. I'm calling it a tool. Let's say that's not a new amazing I forgot the word, feature or solution. The word come back to me. There's so many things coming through my mind. It's not an amazing one-click thing. You need to continue evaluating, and you need to look at this as pretty much like a live being, if you want to. So coming back to the mirror and coming back to yourself, you need to continue evaluating, learning from it, but also feeding back. And that's where the fear or the cost of us trying to save some time is absolutely great. We are saving costs in dollars, in pounds, in hours, in manpower, and maybe in people that are in the team. But I do think that there is a massive cost that comes with it in terms of precision and the value of the outcome if you do not spend any time and effort in doing the human loop. So that comes back to maybe cross-referencing with the fear. If there's a big banner all over the place saying, oh, AI takes our job, I mean, hopefully it now came off the big hype. But AI does not intend to take the job. It's supposed to be the assistant tool to improve things, but it doesn't improve anything if you don't put anything valuable into it. Sure. So that's where the knowledge and the kind of potential precision comes from the actual human impact rather than just that.
I was actually going to follow up on something that you just mentioned there about, it might save you some time, in the immediate sense. But then how does that impact reproducibility of what you're trying to solve? Because if you put the same prompt into, ChatGPT twice, you're going to get the same answer twice. And then how much time does that then cost you and your team if, you're trying to repick that work up later, if you're trying to reproduce scientific results or anything like that? It just came up to me.
I'll define that. I think the cost is less domain knowledge because that is very, open-ended. When I say less domain knowledge, it's like not I'm talking about the stupidities. I'm talking about people have no idea because a junior developer, if they prompt it and they have no subject matter, they never, work in any Java or any, HTML, CSS website. They just prompt it, it created for you. But did they relate to it or not? Because how would they know that this is the right code for that particular problem and they are solving the situation? I have been engaged with millions of, to be honest, now students virtually and day to day. They are prompting, they are using the prompts. At the same time, they're getting a lines of code, but they don't know how and what it is solving because they have no knowledge about it. So with the passage of time, what I believe that we have a habit of reading books, we rectify resources. In academia, obviously, we always find the best resources with the, full, if I say information seeking behavior, we follow that. And that is the big thing for any academia, and we build on that one. Now with ChatGPT, because it's easy, is definitely more efficiency. We believe that it is increasing. The junior developers are using it. They are producing something. But does that production is equal to quality? I doubt so. We still have resources to rectify. Anyone want to add?
Build on that a little bit? So I think this is a really interesting case study because I've been watching what's been happening in software engineering in particular for the last year. And I'm sure everyone in the room knows what happened to Stack Overflow, for example, right? Shares tanked. Then a few months later, they finally integrated Overflow AI. Everything kind of came up. And in the meantime, now we have stuff like Replit, we have Cursor, we have Altera agents, we have, of course, Claude in the last week now, we have computer use. So I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone in the room that we have the GPT that you've just been talking about, where actually it doesn't generate the same thing both times. That's the whole point. It generates a different thing each time. That's part of the efficiency and effectiveness issue. But now we also have this other stream, this so-called intelligent AI, these other models that are heading kind of a slightly different direction. And I think for me, that's why it's so important to get this right as well and to be interrogating, like you're saying, looking at the data, looking at the output, because we still have such an amount of ignorance about how these tools work. And we have people who equate the name of a product with the name of a company, with the name of a technology, not really even understanding that they are going in kind of two different directions. I don't know if you've heard that, they were talking about GPT-5, now it's off again, but we have O1 and we have this whole kind of reasoning development as well that's happening. So software developers, junior developers, they can't get work anymore because AI is now doing their work for them. They're not writing code anymore, they're editing it, they're correcting it. There's a huge amount of concern in industry about how are those junior workers going to get work experience if AI is taking their jobs from them. So there's a much bigger conversation, I think, to be had about cost in terms of human cost, output cost obviously as well, cost in terms of reputation. If your business outputs something that is not reliable, that might do damage. For anyone who's interested, there's a great interview with the Replit guys. It's about 2 hours long. It's the Lex Friedman podcast, where he did a 2-hour show with them. And basically they go through and they talk about how they are editing and updating the code. And they're putting in things like, this is dangerous, to literally train the system to not follow certain instructions. So the human in the loop, absolutely 100%. But again, that ignorance and just awareness that this is an evolving, emerging technology that is acting, as we still know, in some really strange ways. And we do need to keep an eye on it, yeah.
I will absolutely continue that, if that's right. In terms of the human in the loop, and I guess, we all agree on the fact that there must be that human interaction with the domain knowledge, with external knowledge. But the interesting part is which humans are contributing to that knowledge, because that also came up so many times, and also wonderful, crazy, scary, but crazy, cool examples to see, because when you think about, we're all aware of, I don't want to say, racism or this or that. I mean, there is a bias, and the bias was always there. The bias is known in society. The bias obviously is present in technology as well. So this wonderful technology now comes with the fact that it is using a wide variety of data and knowledge from all over, let's say, the world, all over the planet, all over the different sources. Now, I come back to tiny little points on the data. You can put quite a bit of safety wrapping around and quite a bit of, not saying full control, but quite a bit of control in trying to guide and trying to do this iterative loop on saying which specific sets of data, which specific source of data you would like to rank higher than maybe others. But I'm coming back to the data that it comes from, or the opinions that it comes from, or the people that are actually feeding the, this is dangerous, this is good response, this is bad response, are going to be such a massive influence. So who are the people that are contributing to your model? Because that would be, again, a new level of bias. It's like a new dimension.
I literally came across a paper on this yesterday. It was published last week. It's on arXiv, and it's basically on the fact that different LLMs are now being shown to express different ideological viewpoints, different worldviews, depending on the creator. So they did a survey of Baidu, Anthropic, Meta, OpenAI, not Grok, but a few other ones. They did them in Chinese and in English, and they looked at different regions, and they discovered that the LLMs are not just about the bias and the training data, which of course is from Web 2. We all know that. It comes from Wikipedia, Reddit, everything. We know that now. But beyond the kind of the initial bias in the training data and us being able to correct it, prompt transformation, all that stuff, this is actually something bigger and more fundamental because, again, I think as we move into this kind of intelligent, agentic AI space that everyone's talking about in industry, what if you give over your ability to control your computer to a model that we now know has a certain worldview based on its creator and will probably then act a certain way depending on that worldview? And it's been shown to be different depending on the language that it's using, the region that the model is from and operating in. So models are not just these static things that exist in a place like this permanent thing. They are expressions of ourselves. They are extensions of us as people. So just like the GPT or whatever acts like a presence, like a person, 100% with that, the model itself is also an expression of the people who make it. So it's so much more complicated, right, than I think how we're used to thinking about technology.
Amazing, thank you. Now that we're all sufficiently horrified, I want to pivot a little bit over to what does success look like? What can we do to kind of mitigate some of these risks?
I think Amira should go first because we've been talking too much.
I'll take that. I think we are obviously. I was just reading, online that there is from 2025, all the European schools and colleges are basically incorporating AI training into their curriculum because they know that 40% is like students are the one who's using this AI and interacting with that, and without the training, there is no way that they can go. So now they are basically adopting the AI inside of their, like if I say academia or in the workplaces, like we have now different programs. I think every day you have seen, like if you are, SMEs or if you are, large companies, they are incorporating this AI adoption and techniques, and it comes to the ultimate solution, prompt engineering. We have to learn what is the prompt engineering, what does it mean for that, what are the different prompts that can ultimately give you that, kind of a results as well. Guidelines are coming up. Obviously, it also thought, because we are still very newbie, to be honest, I believe the policies need to be very clear cut. And now, because I know academia have started focusing on rather than the plagiarism, as you know, this is a big, again, a debate in academia, what is plagiarism and what is not. Is AI giving the right rules and regulation? Sometimes it makes the resources which is nowhere find online, and it is just like deep fakes, to be honest, if I say. So this is, I think, my solution towards this. We have to adopt it in a way and make the policies around it. So yes, nobody can refrain from it, but at the end of the day, people who are interacting with it, they should utilize it in a better way. So that is my solution, I think, to that ultimate problem. Yeah. Do you want to?
Yeah, that sounds, again, it's a very positive look because the thing that jumps in my head also, we said, with the Halloween spirits and everything else, but the nightmares or the fears, first of all, your nightmare can be somebody's absolute dream because, if it brings value and they can do something with that, that's absolutely great. But if I kind of take a little bit different point of view on what's success, it's not necessarily defining one way of success. I really like how Mairéad phrased it earlier in terms of it is not one, do that course, do that certifications, and you're done. It is just slightly shifting the set of mind, or maybe just the mindset is, or you just kind of, if you are already in that mindset, is understanding that this is an ongoing, continuous, just continuous evolution, I said. And if we think in terms of, let's say, the company point of view, maybe not from the education side, is companies or your role in a company, you may be somebody who is more on the development, kind of hands-on, and you might be concerned about, if the, I don't need to write the code, what am I going to be doing? There are a lot of new abilities, and there are lots of new opportunities that you can come in. And in any way, it might actually take the more boring, if you want to call some parts of your tasks, some parts of your work, boring tasks out of your day and bring much more creative opportunities in. So if we try to shift away from thinking, oh, that's new technology, it might be affect my job, my future options, my progress, etc. But try to twist it around and try to see what value you can take out of it. What can you do in your own current role? Maybe it means that your role, all of these new roles didn't exist 5-10 years ago. Of course, in the next, span of 5 or 10 years, I'm absolutely sure there will be another massive revolution of what is actually that we're doing in the development, and the experience is going to be completely different. So take this opportunity as a nice growth, as in it's usually that from very difficult situations, from very difficult nightmarish scenarios, there are great, interesting things that come up. So be these people who take the opportunity, learn as much as you can, and that's kind of my thinking, because I'm absolutely in the beginning, the company I work for, in the very starting age of this adoption, but I'm pretty sure quite a lot of places and quite a lot of companies are. So that big banner of saying we use AI is absolutely great if it means that it gives you confidence, but use it in terms of learn, take note of different other industries, take note of what is going on in terms of competition, and take note of what can you bring to the next step, rather than only saying, I've learned this last week, last month, last year, and I'm going to be okay with that for a while. So I think it's that continuous evolution.
Thank you, Lilia. We'll just end with Mairéad before we hand over to the audience for Q&A.
Okay, because I get the last word, I'm going to bring it way further out and up and around. Yes, so of course we need to figure out guidance and all of that stuff, but of course it is also changing. For me, success looks like actually using AI, generative AI, this technology to solve the biggest problems in our world, which it's not doing right now. It's actually making them worse. So we have all kinds of issues around energy consumption. We have issues around digital equity gaps. We have issues around lack of literacy, as we've discussed. But again, I think it all ties together. So if people become literate about the technology, they will understand things like you can choose a small language model for certain uses. You can download it to your phone, and you can have access to the most cutting-edge model, but you won't be using Wi-Fi, and you won't be using vast amounts of compute, for example. People need to understand that they have options. People need to understand the difference between an action model and a language model and a multimodal model. They need to understand this so they understand what to choose for their use cases. But for me, really critically, what we need to crack is we need to figure out how to be part of the journey where AI, by us putting pressure on the companies, on the industry, and being part of the conversation, we help move this development in the direction of alignment with human values, which is what Anthropic loves to talk about. And that means not destroying the planet, educating people about how to use AI responsibly, solving the energy problem, but also managing to allow people who do not have access to the information and the education systems that we have now in the West, to allow them to close the gap as well, to create accessible AI that is environmentally not as costly as what we have now. I think that is what success looks like.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I think we've got time for maybe 1 or 2 questions for the panel.
Hello. Thanks a lot for that. I think the question, hello. The question that I was going to ask was around how you would help an organization to introduce this in a specific area, but you answered that. You covered that over. I think we need to be very careful when we refer to Gen AI, that it's just one thing. It's not. And I think we've had lots and lots of almost sweeping statements to say AI is this, AI is that, AI is the other. It's lots of different little bits. So I work in software engineering. I've had this conversation for the last 3 weeks, which is why I'm very keen to talk to you about it now. That lack of understanding, you say, between sort of leadership and employees, you can flip that on its head. because a lot of the tools, especially in sort of software engineering, if you think about like Copilot for development, that knowledge is being transferred upwards, and the fear is right at the top from our stakeholders and our leadership for saying, oh well, Gen AI, I've heard all these things. You know, this particular talk is called Gen AI horror stories. I haven't heard a single horror story, and got to be totally honest with you. But there is lots of fear, and you have used that word quite a few times. So I think my question for you is, would you agree with that? I know you've done lots of research into this. Gen AI is an overarching umbrella for the entire thing, and sure, some bits of it are really scary. Some bits can be very useful. So, you know, when we talk about from a dev point of view, Copilot, and I know you mentioned earlier on around juniors not learning, I don't buy into that personally. I think there's always that human element in there who will be able to help, and how is that any different to going on Stack Overflow or reading a book and getting that sort of advice anyway? So would you agree with that you know, we need to drill into this conversation a little more rather than staying at the top and saying, oh, Gen AI is this scary thing, let's avoid it?
Can we just say we didn't name the panel?
Oh, it wasn't a date.
It was Halloween themed, but yes.
It's quite easy to say. It's a nice opening. It's a very, very nice opening, a very catchy title. I think if I jump in, I do agree with you quite a lot, and it's quite interesting that you mentioned we covered some of the kind of preempted some of the questions, which is absolutely great. And I think between us, we had a couple of catch-ups, you know, chats before, and we were so careful with continuously saying, we just say maybe AI or mention AI because there is such a breadth of different subjects and different lines and different uses. So I absolutely agree with you in terms of it's not intended to be a fear. It never wasn't, well, I don't think between us, for sure, we all agree that it was never supposed to be a fear. It's an opportunity. So the lack of knowledge and the lack of understanding, and that's kind of coming back to, it always rings in my head in terms of what is the actual thing or what is the problem that you're trying to solve. So I think that understanding is a very, very important part. So quite a lot of fear comes from we're trying to plug this something and it doesn't seem to do what we want. We threw so much money into it. We threw so much, you know, resource, so much effort, and it doesn't work. Oh, you know, fire the whole thing. No. The point is maybe stepping a couple. It might have happened. That's absolutely fine. That's the real, again, feedback loop of coming back a few steps and saying, okay, that didn't work. What can we do? Did we try to ask the right question? Did we try to use the right tool? And maybe, yes, if it comes back to the team, to say, well, go do a little bit more research, do a little bit more upskilling, that's absolutely fine. So there is a gap, we touched on that quite a bit, between maybe different levels of who's making the decisions and between those people who are implementing them. So talking about it and making this conversation practical and speaking in the right language. If you want to talk to maybe higher execs and you want to talk in value, that's absolutely fine. But that talking and that communication loop absolutely important, and I think was essential,
Just one thing. I talk to a lot of educators who think that generative AI was just invented in the last year or two. So you have to do like this backwards trajectory where you have to say things like, ChatGPT went viral because it's natural language processing and understanding with this lovely user interface. And that's why you're all paying attention to it now. But really what you need to go back to is like 2017, read the famous paper, attention's all you need. And then you need to go back to the fact that we had AI since 1956. And you have to explain to them the difference between symbolic AI and predictive AI and generative. So you have to do like a very quick overview, first of all, for where I am, to ground the conversation in something that doesn't to them freak them out and make them feel like this is just a brand new thing. And you have to actually say, no, actually, AI was the product of a group of academics, not AI gurus who've popped up on LinkedIn overnight. Academics who got together and wanted to create machines that learn and that use natural language. And I think when you frame it that way, first of all, you cut down on the fear. You also ground it in a much more sensible conversation, frankly, about research and not about quick, you know, jumping on bandwagons. And I think that is so, so important just to, again, quell the fear, but also help them understand that this is now a new direction and a new pace. Yeah.
All right, let's take our panel.
I think that's the end. Thank you.